I'm gonna share a quick confession with you while we're waiting for the rest of the folks to come in. Some of you were in our last trade talk that we did back in October, and I'll just tell you real quick. And by the way, this is me just filling time, right? What do they call that? Just whatever. So I'll just share with you what I shared back in October. That this is a little bit of a confession on my part. That up until about a year ago, we were ignoring you purposely. And our general opinion was that you were overwhelmed, there wasn't enough of you, your ratio was off, you don't have enough time, you're under a lot of pressure from the administration and the parents to get these kids, deal with the ones that are dealing with issues or send the ones that want to go on to the four-year college. I know I'm preaching to choir, but for the most part, from an industry standpoint, at least from my own personal standpoint, we were ignoring you, and instead we were going directly to your instructors, especially those of you that have construction industry instructors, and working directly with them and directly with your students. So we've got alliances and groups of contractors all over the state that are doing that. Chuck's out there meeting with your programs all the time, and it was really credit to Dawn and her team and Dr. Barbara Wall, on the CTAE side, that we decided. Well, really, it was Dawn's idea. This whole vision of what we're doing with these trade talks, I'll brag about Dawn, she's out in the hallway, but it was really Dawn who said, you guys are being courted all the time by these four-year colleges, right? And they probably buy you a nicer lunch than Chick-fil-A, but seriously, Dawn said, she came to us from a construction standpoint, and we met last year, not this year, but a year ago, as part of the planning for the Counselor Day that hopefully some of you were attended, or some of the people during the SkillsUSA and the SEFCA Expo down at the Georgia International Convention Center. So Dawn, after that last year, came up with this vision, and we didn't, at the time, we weren't calling them trade talks, but the idea that she basically said this whole idea of the four-year counselors, you guys need to do that. The industries need to do that. And then we started planning, and that first one we had in October was our beta test. And then preparing for that event, and some of you again heard me say this, I said what I just said, which is we were ignoring you, but I said our main focus, and Zach alluded to this earlier, Chuck, everybody kind of had their version, that what we need to be doing, what we're trying to do, is help these kids understand the opportunities, right? Understand the opportunities, and then more importantly, the pathways to get to those opportunities. And I've said that 1,000 times, maybe more, to anyone who will listen. And in preparing for the event in October and getting ready to do what I'm standing here doing right now, saying that out loud, I realized, well, that's what you're trying to do, right? Aren't you trying to do the same thing? And it really hit me in preparing for the October event, standing up in front of some of you in October, we need to be doing that together. We need to be helping you, partnering with you, industry, not just construction, but all the industries, in helping our kids understand what the opportunities are and the pathways to get to those opportunities. So that's a large part of that, basically, as far as I'm concerned, is the primary purpose of why we're here today. So I think I've killed enough time. It looks like most everybody's back in the room and settled. I hope so. All four groups are now in the room. Group 3, we found you. You're here. You made it back. Okay. So does anybody know what a construction technologist is? Okay. Well, you're about to meet your first construction technologist. Josh Bone is here. Has a diverse background. He can tell you more about that. But he's going to tell you more about what a construction technologist, and as Zach alluded to this morning, sort of hopefully expand your awareness of some of the opportunities that we do have available now in the industry. So Josh, welcome Josh.
Thank you. Mike, it never ceases to amaze me all the skills you have, even kind of filling time now. That's one more you can add to your thing. So good job there, filling in the time and getting everyone in. So, as Mike said, I'm a construction technologist. Technology is changing every single industry in this country. Technology is impacting your jobs. How much has it changed your job and what you do in the last 5 years? Construction is no different. We've had a radical transformation over the last 4 years in construction technology that is now booming and busting at the seams, and there's all of these great new opportunities that you can come into this space and really pave out a path from the day that you come on board to the day that you retire from in this industry, focusing on technology. There's a whole ecosystem out there today. So when I talk about construction technology, there's so many aspects of this. I'm going to be the tip of the iceberg. This is an hour and 30-minute presentation that I did for a work-based learning session, and that was the tip of the iceberg. This is 20 minutes, and it's going to be a fire hose. I'd like for you to hold your questions to the end, and I'm happy to answer all of your questions at the end. If there's something I can do for you and your students after the fact, listen, I'll come talk to your students. I'll come to your high school. I'm happy to do those things. This is the cool side of construction. So with that being said, hey, just want everybody to know little Chuck is not the only one with the cool name here. I'm Bim to the bone. And I'm a little more rock and roll. He's a little more rap. So, but dun-dun-dun-dun. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm Bim to the bone. I do a podcast. We get over 7,500 listens every single week. This is a world into itself. If you go out and search Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn for hashtag construction dorks, hashtag construction dorks is a real thing, and it trends from time to time with all this fun change that's happening in our industry. So what's driving a lot of this? You saw a lot of those numbers. Construction has reached a point where we're employing over 1 million fewer people today in the United States of America doing construction than we did in 2007. 1 million fewer. That's a decade, and we have 1 million fewer people. That number is expected to reach 3 million by 2028, fewer people. There's a massive amount of opportunity here for construction professionals to get into this industry, and construction technology is going to accelerate our path in the way that we do construction. This is some things that are happening around the globe right now. This is a company that's a state-owned Chinese company, and I bring this up because when I show this to people and we start to talk about it, a lot of people say, that's China. That'll never happen. It's not safe. You got to have safer working conditions here in the U.S. This is an example of what we call off-site construction. I'm not making a bold prediction. The future of construction is off-site. Manufacturing and construction are coming together. Industrialization of construction is happening. This building was designed and built off-site in 9.5 months and erected from the time they touched ground 15 days. When I say 15 days, they had pillowcases on the pillows. If we did everything right here in the U.S. with this job, the design time, if everything went as smoothly as possible, maybe 2.5 years, maybe 2.5 years. This company, they've signed contracts in Mexico City and Toronto. There is a massive amount of outside pressure that's out there that's forcing us to change in the construction industry, just like Airbnb is forcing companies to change, just like Uber's forcing companies to change, just like Netflix forced people to change. Necessity is the mother of all invention, and we have necessity. Hiring fewer, we have to do more with less. So what is this happening now? I'll say this, your students are going to be happy to hear about this, right? Smartphones are actually tools on a job site, and that is very true. These are roles and opportunities out there for young professionals to come into this industry and hold these roles to where they're managing data. All of our files are electronic. We're not pushing near as much paper. Everything's gone digital. We can create these custom digital forms. We can collect data and aggregating that data to know how we can be more efficient and what was our lead time on our RFIs, what was our lead time on our change orders. We can now go back and look at data, and our phones are tools that we're using. Think about having the most current set of plans at all times. Can you print off enough paper on a job like the Mercedes-Benz and keep up with all the massive amounts of design changes that are happening? How do you document it? How do you keep up with it? Tablets and phones are critical tools for us on a job site. These are things that your students have grown up with, right? These are tools that they understand how to use. And I'll say this, a lot of times I'm learning from them that not checking my email on the weekends, a lot of these millennials that have been coming into the industry have helped me a lot kind of find that balance of life and work and not to let these devices manage my life more than they should be. I'm learning a lot from these students and these project engineers and these new roles that they're filling, and we're really very quickly providing value to each other. Now, you heard my name, right? BIM to the bone. A lot of you said, well, what's BIM? Sounds like a cool name, but what's BIM? BIM is building information modeling. When I came into this industry, in college, I learned how to draw a line and offset a line and break a line and drop in lines, arcs, and circles to create CAD documents. BIM is the future of our industry. BIM is what we create a digital twin. I don't draw lights as lines and arcs and circles. I go out to that manufacturer's website and I know exactly what manufacturer of light that is. I know what clearance I need to service that light as an electrician. I know exactly what type of connection I need to tie into my HVAC units. So if I'm doing a VAV, I know every single component. I know that it's a NIBCO 90-degree valve on a half-inch copper pipe. We are building a virtual twin inside of the computer that changes the way that we communicate. It's breaking down all these barriers of silos that we've had to communicate in the past, the architect talking to the engineer talking to the trades going back and talking to the GC. What BIM does for us is it fundamentally changes the way we are supposed to communicate in construction. It brings us all together on the same page. We share our models together. My electrical model, now I get the piping model, and I start to get the sheet metal model, and I get the civil and the site work, and I pull all these together. And what we're able to do is this. Instead of me going out and finding and constructing this building and seeing that I have a sanitary waste bin pipe that I've got running through this, I've got my sanitary PVC pipe that has to slope. It's coming through a concrete that I've already created a sleeve for that I have a penetration so I can't move it. If I capture this in the computer with BIM, what does that do for me? In the world of BIM, they decided the answer to this is a real problem that we have. In the real world, they upsize that beam compared to me finding that problem in the computer. What happens? Well, with BIM, I order the right size beam. With here, I go and I cut my penetration on site in the shop, not on site. Certain cities like New York, you have to pull burn permits every time you want to cut something because you have to make sure it's part of the process that adds time. So we do this in the shop, and it costs me very little money. But without BIM, I've ordered the wrong beam. I've installed the wrong beam. I have to buy a new beam. I have to cut out the old beam. I have to install the new beam. I have to make my cut on site. I may have to wait for a permit to come in. It may take days to do. And this can add significant cost. There is a whole world of virtual construction. You saw that term back there before, VDC, virtual design and construction. That's actually, BIM is what we do to create our models. VDC is the process around building around this and doing virtual construction. And really what happens, and this is why we're doing BIM today, is because not only is it saving us money, it's an insurance policy for us on the job site. It helps us mitigate risk and increase margins. Digital industries are proven to make more money. Digital industries that go digital make more money. Guess which direction the construction industry is heading? We're going to have to do more with less, and the people that are in the industry today will be making more money in the years to come as we go digital. BIM is one of the great ways of doing this. None of your students probably like gaming, so don't pay attention to this because none of these high schoolers are into gaming. This is the Unity gaming engine that all of them are using, from Fortnite to Halo to what. I'm not a gamer, but I do game in BIM. I can go and put my models up in the cloud using tools like Revisto and Fuser and others that actually use a gaming engine, and now all of us can be on our own computers, walk around through a browser and explore any building. Think about you seeing your classroom. Think about you seeing your space and what you're going to operate before you go into it. Tools like this are out there today that allow us to walk through projects, work together. We can actually go grab someone and say, hey, look, I'm looking at my room. Can you help me understand what I'm looking at here? Could I do this? Could I lay out? You have the ability to lay out your own desk and configure your rooms. You're in this same gaming engine. We're gamifying the industry using technology, and it's increasing our communication. It's increasing the scope of what you're doing on your projects. I can tell you, we've done this with hospitals, and laying this out for doctors is a fascinating thing to see how they actually get their space and know how they're going to work in that space before they actually get into the space. We want to know what a schedule looks like. How many of you have ever done new construction at a school and seen a Gantt chart? Has anybody ever seen, hey, here's our schedule, and you look at this chart that's this massive sheet of paper, and maybe you talk about it, maybe you go to a fundraiser and maybe they have a schedule there. What if I told you, I'm going to show you exactly how this is built in the real time with the schedule, seeing the cure for my concrete. I do a 4D schedule. I actually go in and build this virtually. I see the schedule. We look at pinch points and we look at where there might be issues for safety concerns and how we can up the PSI of our concrete and get quicker cure times to save time on the job. This job is a $2.2 billion job that I worked on 2 years ago. By going in and doing this in the schedule, do you know what we were able to do? cut 4 months off the schedule. A big portion of it was concrete cure time. A big part of it was just understanding things that we could not see looking at a set of 2D documents. This changes the way. How many of you have ever seen Fixer Upper with Chip and Joanna? Yes. Nobody in here. Okay. It's, my wife would join a cult from Chip and Joanna if she started one. But what do you see on their? What is she doing to communicate to their homeowners? They see it in 3D. They understand. Wouldn't you like to have that opportunity? This is wonderful for commercial construction. And the way that we used to lay things out, myself and Jeremy work for very old tool companies. My tool company is 175 years old. Milwaukee is how old, Jeremy? Over 100 years old. There you go. They're hiring people like us today called construction technologists. If you don't think this industry is changing, you better take another look, because what we're doing now, the largest manufacturer of tape measures in the world, the company that I work for, you probably have a yellow tape measure in your house. We're looking at now using technology with lasers to lay things out. I was at World of Concrete a couple of years ago, and I saw them pull 2 people off the floor and say, hey, we're going to teach you how to use this software and hardware, and we're going to pull 2 other people off, and you're going to use tape measure, pull string, have a plumb bob, the old way of doing it. Now, I think the group on the left-hand side was a little bit smarter going into it. It was a non-competitive advantage. There was 1 woman on that team and 2 men on the other team. So the woman and the man that learned the software and the hardware took 30 minutes to learn the software and the hardware. They laid out over 240 points with 0 mistakes. The group on the other side laid out just over 40 points with 4 major problems in laying that out in the same amount of time. Technology is making us 4 times, 5 times with less errors and emissions in our process. It's driving productivity for us. And when we're hiring 1 million people less than we were a decade ago, we've got to figure out how to do more with less. Not only that, reality capture is a big deal. I caught 2 ghosts this day. It was a good day. No, it's not a Ghostbuster. I'm laser scanning a space, and I'm actually measuring this room to a very high level of accuracy, not getting on a ladder, not pulling a tape measure. I'm measuring off a space with a handheld unit that gives me this capability that I connect to my tablet, and I can see them capturing this in real time. No more pulling tape measure and trying to figure this out. I captured in our Atlanta office 14,000 square feet in about an hour and a half, and I had it pulled into a model within a matter of 2 hours. That would have taken me weeks, and usually 2 people working on a ladder, not the most safest conditions. Drones, there is a whole world of drones out there. The way that we can go in now, we can measure sites and use what's called photogrammetry and take pictures with our drones and actually go out and turn that directly into a model that we can use to capture as-built conditions in hospitals, on massive sites. We have drones now flying in sewer tunnels that know not to fly too high, too low, and they're capturing conditions of sewers and knowing what state of repair they need to be in. Atlanta has some infrastructure challenges, right? Great opportunity there. You want to put people in sewers or in manholes and some of these very unsafe working conditions? These are tools that you can start to use. My favorite. Now I can tell you, these make you look real cool, right? Oh yeah, Magic Leap on the right, my HoloLens down there at the bottom, and a daiquiri there. Now these are augmented reality. This is a hard hat on the left-hand side. But these are tools that are out there, and you wonder, how does this apply, Josh, to construction? This is a company that I've been working with for some time. It works with our phones, it works with our tablets, but it also works with a HoloLens. It's Windows 10 on your face. If you've never had a chance to see a HoloLens, it's a computer on your hands-free computer on your face. He's out there, and he's actually pulling up the app in real time. He goes to the app, and there's a marker on the ground, a QR code, that we're able to take, and now he can see exactly where the underground is coming up and the penetrations for this space. Not looking at plans and trying to determine where this is at. Not all he can do is lay out one icon to show where that location is, and now he's able to go out and lay this out for the rest of the team. The U.S. Army just spent $480 million on these things. These are real tools. I'm not talking about the future of construction. I'm talking about the accelerated change. This is happening today. Understand, this is not the future. More of this will happen in the future, but this is happening today on job sites in America today. Exciting time. Now, I told you, BIM to the bone is who I've been for a long time, and I'll never not be BIM to the bone. But this ecosystem around BIM and me having my model helps me drive robotics, helps me drive digital layout, helps me drive reality capture, and BIM is at the core of this. But offsite construction is the future of this industry. Working in conditions where it's not hot, it's not cold, it's not too high, I'm not getting exposure. The things that concern us about construction and the safety concerns that we have for our children and our students, those are starting to improve in offsite construction. How many of you have ever cut anything on a miter saw? Put something down, mark it, and cut it with a miter saw. Did you do that? Did you just let it push it to the right length with no marking, no measurement? You just let it push it and a label prints off and it tells you exactly where that piece of wood or that pipe goes? This is a tiger stop. There's multiple solutions out there. I sent 28 dimensions of 21-foot copper pipe, and look at the amount of waste at the end of that 21-foot piece of copper pipe. Computers are good at a lot of things. One of the things they're really good at is if I send 28 dimensions, I don't want to be responsible to find those 28 dimensions to minimize my waste, right? I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I've got the least amount of waste possible, but I don't have the time to go and figure this out. I sent 28 unique dimensions straight to that saw. It has a computer tied onto it. It pushes it to the right length. He pulls the blade down. It prints out a label. He labels it and knows exactly where it goes in the building. Everything is defined. Everything is kept up, and there is less waste. One company that we helped this with 2 years ago saved $280,000 on copper waste in 1 single year. These are amazing tools. Not only are they doing this, they're making it far more safe to go in and cut. You're not having to worry about getting your hand so close and lining things up so accurately. You're just worried about getting it up against the stop, and you're good to go. This can even be an automated process. And listen, I'll tell you this. People look at this like, what about my job? What about my job? There's 1 million fewer people working in the construction industry today than there was a decade ago. And the growth in construction that's just for here in the Atlanta area is massive. We've got to figure out ways to automate this process. Safety. How many of you have heard of exoskeletons, right? Why not for the construction industry? There's a massive market with exoskeletons. I use this one to pick up, I put the legs and the shoulders on. So I put the legs and the shoulders on, and you know what it did for me? Made me 5 times stronger. I picked up a 40-pound box, and it felt like nothing. That was the first generation of this device. This thing only weighs 6.8 pounds, and it's just using some simple mechanics. The second generation of this makes us 20 times stronger. I'll tell you, high school boys really enjoy that. I will say this. I want to reiterate the fact that I've been in this industry for 20 years, and I've seen more women come into construction in the last 10 years, and it's been one of the best things for this industry. Do not discourage any of the women in your schools from coming into construction. We have seen a massive growth in women in construction, still far from where we need to be, but they fit so well into this. And when you have exoskeletons, if maybe strength was something that they would have been concerned with in the past, or safety, these are things with off-site construction exoskeletons that we can start to leverage. 3D printing? That's not real, that's the future. Well, I'll tell you, just the tip of the iceberg on 3D printing. This job was printed off-site in 17 days and assembled on-site completely in 2 days. Far more efficient. Do you know what the UAE is, what Dubai specifically? They have a mandate that 25% of all construction in that country by 2030 will be 3D printed. The UPS just invested $56 million in a 3D printer here in Atlanta. Why would UPS invest $56 million in a 3D printer? Anybody want to take a guess? You print it straight off Amazon, right at the UPS distribution center, and it cuts down their costs, and they ship it directly to your house. A lot's changing. I'm telling you, hashtag construction dorks if you want to geek out with us sometime. And robotics, well, listen, there's a lot of crazy things happening out there in the world of construction technology, but how are you ever going to lay a brick with a robot? We're doing it today. Across this country, I've seen dozens of projects that has Sam, the semi-automated mason, actually out there using technology, laser scanners and BIM, drive this, and it's buttering the brick, and it's setting the brick. It takes one tender to go out and attend to the brick and keep the mortar and the bricks loaded. And I can tell you, you look at that, and mason's like, man, that's taking my job, Josh. That's scary. What are you doing? Go to Ohio. You can't find enough masons to do the work that's there. They're changing their design categories because they don't have enough masons to do the work. Necessity brings that. Anybody remember what it's like to actually get a cab and have them supposed to meet you at your hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning to get you to an airport at a certain time and they don't show up? Uber never does that to me. So Uber made it easy for me to choose Uber over the cabs. But this is Sam. They say, hey, I come from a family of construction. My uncle says this is technically not a mason. He doesn't take smoke breaks, so it's not a mason. Now, listen, construction workers, I want to challenge you on this. I want to see where some of you are. I grew up in a construction family, and I remember looking at my guidance counselor's wall in Calhoun, Georgia, and there was actually a poster of a person working at a desk, wearing a white collar, and working on something at a desk. This was '97, so computers were not even on the desk at the time because, it's just not every office had that. But then there was a picture of this construction worker in overalls that was dirty. And it was, Josh, what do you want to be? You don't want to go to college? Do you want to be that? And I looked at that and I thought, that's my dad, that's my uncle, that's my family that I grew up with. And they were also encouraging me not to go into construction. I think we need to update some of these pictures and update some of the stigma that's associated with this. We're not looking for people in this industry that are just looking to, I don't want to go to college. We're looking for the best and the brightest. We're looking for those that would become engineers and architects. We want them to come into the trades. We want them to come into construction and actually where work is being done and work is being performed. We need the best and the brightest. And there's enough of us in the industry, there's a community around this now where they feel like they have a place. And this is all inclusive for everybody. We're doing summits now where we're sharing ideas, and it's a very open community. It's more like software developers, and we share and we work together as opposed to trying to be competitive against the companies that work against us. So there's a massive amount of change that's happening in this industry. 175-year-old tool company, 100-year-old tool companies out there doing construction technology. We have an add-in inside of a BIM software. There's a lot that's going on. So again, this is just the tip of the tip. If I can ever help you in your schools in any way, you've got my contact information there. I've got cards with me. I'm hanging around all day. Mike, thank you.
We've got a few minutes.
Okay.
Does anybody want to ask Josh any questions? Anybody? Oh, yes, a couple in the back.
So, one of the greatest things, if they show that they are really interested, we have a community, and if you'll point them towards me, I can put them in touch with people. But what I will also say, the beautiful thing is about YouTube, I can teach them how to use any software and give them a few lessons and how they can go into YouTube. Virtual reality, all these things, there's ways that you can do it. Yes, sir. Oh, yes.
Hang on 1 second, Zach. I'll bring it to you.
You talked about the salaries for the journeyman. What about the salaries for the other positions that you just talked about?
I can tell you, if you have experience and if you've been doing this, if you've been doing BIM for 5 years, you're going to be making close to 6 figures in just 5 years. If you have 10 years of experience in BIM, you're definitely well into the 120, 140. You're driving work and you're really pushing work at a very quick rate. The beautiful thing about BIM is that you're now the connection to the field, to the shop, and to the design. So you are there orchestrating a lot of these processes. Companies like Holder have invested in, last time I checked, you guys had 20-something people in your BIM department. There's companies out there now. It's how they actually run construction now is through this virtual construction process.
My comment relative to a career opportunity in BIM is that is an easy in for someone that's not 18 yet. In other words, that's called field, for Holder at least, it's called field engineering. And when we first started approaching the 16-year-olds in industry, we did it with Holder in their field engineering department, and those young people were partnered with someone more experienced, learning how to do the laser layout, just like Josh had mentioned at the World of Concrete show. And they do the drones, they scan the billion points with lasers to see what a current space is as built. They check it as it's being built, in addition to laying it out prior to. And so that's really your in. And I know that I've gotten calls from Metro Atlanta companies as to, hey, do you have a local just engineering teacher that has some young kids that want to learn this one specific software that we use, which are usually pretty universal, 2 or 3 different types of platforms. And again, you're jumping right into the career path that Josh mentioned, where you get about 5 years under your belt, you're making great money, and you can start at 16 because you just have to learn a piece of technology. So.
Things that they've locked into, so they're very excited the fact that they can come in and learn something extremely quick. And you said very niche focused. They get to be exposed to all these other things around the industry now, and they learn about a lot of these other things that happen around them and how they can better do that. And then the beautiful thing is too, how many times do you see on LinkedIn some of your former students, if you follow them on LinkedIn, they change jobs every 2 or 3 years, right? That's perfect. They can stay in one company and hold her and move into different positions every 2 or 3 years and do something completely different and stay with the same company and build up their 401k and have that capability. Again, this is just the tip of where all this is. There's so much more to this, and it's a really exciting time to be in this space. Any other questions? Thank you.
Let's thank Josh. Full disclosure, Josh said that was an hour-and-a-half presentation when he did this with your work-based learning coordinators, and he said he didn't know till this morning. He thought he was cutting that in half, and he only found out this morning on the way here that he needed to cut that in half again. So that was awesome, right? So Donnie, you want to come on up here? So I'm not sure I'll do this introduction fully justice, but what we do want to do, will you just plug it into that? Oh. That's okay. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so we've been talking about the pathways, and there's Technical College System of Georgia, TCSG. We have 2 folks here still. Mike Howard unfortunately had to leave. But representing the instructor side, we have Donnie Holland from Georgia Northwest Technical College. Are any of your high schools here? Does anybody? Which of your high schools? Anybody in the Northwest Georgia? What's your school?
I work with CCA and also with Bethel.
And you're in Floyd County, right? So Donnie's going to tell us a little bit about the technical college pathway that we showed earlier, that one of the pathways was for the students to go on to the technical college system. Also joining us, which I believe is the only person in the room wearing a bow tie, is Marc Peavy, who will be up here in just a second after Donnie. And some of you may know Marc, but Marc is also with the Technical College System of Georgia. And he's going to be talking, especially, again, near and dear to my heart, is the overlap and opportunities with the secondary schools and the secondary programs. And if you remember, I said before how important the folks here from the elementary and the middle schools, again, part of that is knowing what options an 8th grader, by the time they get to 8th grade, your elementary middle school students, what kind of options do they have available? So Marc will be able to talk more about those options beyond just the traditional pathways that many of your schools have, but also dual enrollment. And some of you, how many have, I asked this earlier, there's a reason, how many of you have college and career academies in your district? Okay, how many of you have 7 college and career academies in your district? Gwinnett has 7, I just learned that today. So anyway, we'll come back to that and let Marc come up here and talk to you more about that in a second. But please welcome Donnie, and let's hear more about what he's been doing with the partnership he's had in Northwest Georgia.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Josh, too, for that. I was pretty impressed. I've heard a lot of that stuff, but he opened my mind to a lot of things. And I want to, through my talking, I want to echo some of the things he said, because everything was true. So I teach a construction management program at Georgia Northwestern Technical College up in Calhoun. And we teach primarily students how to build a house, okay? So we start with very fundamental, power tools, safety, concrete, things like that, all the way up through the finishes, the framing, and then the management classes. I am kind of honored, I guess, to say this, that I am the only technical college in the state that offers a 100% online certificate in construction management, which there's only 5 classes. It's management classes, which are estimating, scheduling, the building code, contracting, and drafting. And in the drafting, we do AutoCAD and Revit. And Revit is kind of part of the BIM family, and it's amazing to me. I've only started using it in the last couple of years. I'm an AutoCAD guy from way back, but with the Revit and the BIM software, it is such a need right now. We're talking about Holder and some other companies in Atlanta. They've come to me saying, hey, do you have any students that kind of like drafting, like the technical side? We'd love to bring them on and train them to do our kind of work. I was talking to him about a year ago, and he said, we are in such a need of these guys to do BIM software that we're having to go out into the field and find somebody that's working and say, hey, would you like an office job? And kind of pull them inside out of the field and train them because there's such a need. And so it's kind of weird. Draftsmen back in the day, used to be a room filled with a bunch of guys and girls doing hand drawings and things like that. And then we moved into computer, and now we're doing this 3D modeling, and it's just amazing how the progression of that has changed. But going back to my little online certificate, I just got off the phone yesterday with a guy who needs some more education. He is currently in the state of Virginia. He's a Georgia resident out of Woodstock, but he's in the state of Virginia doing construction work. And he says, I just found out that you have the only online construction management certificate, and I'm going to be signing up to take that in the fall because I can take it 100% online without ever having to step foot into your college. And so that's kind of beneficial too to that. So I guess the reason I was contacted, maybe I do the last, the short straw or whatever, but where I'm at in my neck of the woods in Northwest Georgia, I have several high schools that have a construction program. Okay, so I'm able to go out to those high schools, and I do. I go to, there's probably anywhere from 12 to 15 schools at my ease of just going out and talking to the construction classes, but also the industrial. So a lot of times it's, metals or any other program as well. I don't know if, the instructor says, hey, you got somebody from the college coming, so they bring all these kids in. And I tell them good stuff about the colleges. Okay, a lot of times I try to get on the same level as they are as far as I don't want to be here, right? Do you guys struggle with that? Maybe some of the students don't want to be in school. A lot of times that's how I start out. I always, I'll say, how many people don't even want to be here right now? And it's alarming to me. I'm like, oh, maybe I should have asked that question. But it's alarming on how many students actually raise their hand. And then I'll ask another question, well, how many are planning on going to college? And not even a quarter of the students will raise their hand. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got some work to do here the next 30 or 40 minutes. And so usually I start off with my own story and in different places that I failed as I started. And I think you guys maybe have failed once or twice at some things. So a lot of times it's just getting on the same level as the students as far as, hey, I was there too. Okay, when I was a senior in high school, I didn't want to go to school anymore. I was like, when I get out, I'm done. I'm not going there. And so I go through that process of, I took a year off from school and I made some bad choices, right? And then I realized that, hey, in order to succeed, you have to kind of apply yourself. And so that's a lot of times what I do is I start there. And, because sometimes when you have a guest speaker from a technical college, you think, oh my gosh, this guy has got his doctorate or whatever, and he's gone through all this years and years of school, and I can never compare to that. So I try to tell them I was where you were at, and I also didn't want to go to school. And so that's kind of, I start there, and then I go on and talk about my program, but I'm also, an advocate for the trades and the technical school. I tell them that I've got a 4-year degree, I've got a bachelor's, and I almost think it was probably the biggest waste of my time, to be honest with you. Now that I am where I'm at now, I worked in Atlanta. I did project engineering for a commercial contractor, and the commute from Calhoun is horrible. And so anyway, through a few other jobs, this technical college job opened up. And when I first started at the technical college, I was thinking, oh, it's one of those schools for those who can't. You know what I mean? I mean, that's kind of my mentality. I was brought up through that mentality where you had to have that 4-year degree to make anything of yourself. Otherwise, kind of like Josh was showing the picture of the construction guy with the, you know, the dirty face and all that kind of thing. And so through 14 years now of working at a technical college and seeing the results from students that have come through, I realize what a difference that makes and what opportunities they have is unbelievable. So real quick, I want to give you a few success stories because it'll either A, make you happy that you have something to tell your students, or B, make you very upset because they're making a lot more money than we are. And usually that's the case with me because I'm like, wait a minute, I've got 2 degrees and, you know, I go through that with my mind. I'm like, how are you making this much money? But anyway, so real quick, I've got a student that he's probably been doing this about 12 years now. He was there when I first started, but he does what's called truss designing. You all know what a roof truss is for a house, right? They make them in a factory, in a plant, whatever, put them on a truck, bring them out to your house. He's been doing it about 12 years, and he makes close to $190,000 a year. And he's got a 2-year associate degree. Okay, so going back to the no debt thing, 190,000, and that's 190 commas. I just want to make sure you all understood that. And then the other part is he works from home. Okay, so even better, right? How awesome would that be? Okay, so he's kind of, you know, that's like the very high part of my scale on that one. So I started with the best one. But I had another student that he mowed lawns, worked for a landscape company for about 5 years when he got out of high school, didn't go to college, didn't do anything, thought, hey, I'm not gonna do anything and I get to mow lawns, you know, the rest of my life, I guess is what he was thinking. He ended up going, realizing that he needed to get into some schooling. He was out of Dallas, Georgia. And so he looked at our program, came through, he graduated, or before that, I'm sorry, he interned with a company out of Atlanta doing residential construction. They build several thousand houses a year. And he interned with them, they hired him on at $55,000, okay? And he worked about 4.5 to 5 months until he was actually officially trained. And what he does is he oversees a subdivision, you know, a new development being built with several houses being built at a time, different stages on each house. After about 5 months when he was trained, they gave him his own subdivision, gave him a $20,000 raise. It's a nice raise, right? 20,000. So now he's making 75,000 plus he gets a truck allowance. And he's got a 2-year degree, no debt. I've got 2 students right now that are working with C.W. Matthews. We talked about them earlier. They're probably one of my biggest employers. And, you know, when you think C.W. Matthews, you think road construction, you think maybe a civil engineer, you know, something like that. I mean, they take my students with a construction management associate degree and they bring them into training to be a bridge foreman. They train them in engineering. I've got another guy that's over or kind of leading a surveying crew right now. And the guy that's in the engineering, he actually had a full ride golf scholarship to a 4-year school. I'm just not going to mention schools right now, but he had a full ride golf scholarship and he went there for about 1.5 years. And he sat in my office one day and he said, man, he said, I love golf. I could play golf all day long every day. He said, but I hate criminal justice. And he said that's the only program that was remotely interesting to him at that college, you know, to get that full ride. He left that full ride scholarship, came through our college, interned with C.W. Matthews, worked for about 9 months in the field, called me a couple of times, almost crying, because he's like, I'm doing this physical labor and it's killing me. And I said, they're just putting you through the ring, you know, just putting you through the ringer, trying to see what you're made of. 9 months later, they bring him in engineering. They give him a company truck. They start him off about 55,000 maybe. From there, he had a boss that left, and all of a sudden he's moving up to this guy's position, and so he's doing very well. He's probably around 60,000 maybe a year with a company truck driving back and forth. And I had another student that worked as an assistant superintendent for a company here in Atlanta. Worked there for about 3 or 4 years. And here's the neat thing about trades, whether it's heating and air, plumbing, electrical, construction management, anything like that. Nobody can take that away from you. You always have that. And so this guy did a assistant superintendent, worked for maybe 3 to 4 years in Atlanta, and then he told me he was leaving. He took a job in Portland, Oregon, as an assistant superintendent over there for another construction company. This guy, I mean, he went to Spain and did running with the bulls. I mean, he's just an outdoorsman. He's on the edge kind of guy. So he wanted to go to Portland and kind of see what that area was. He wasn't married, didn't have kids, anything tie him, so he's able to move. So that's the thing with these trades, is they're mobile. I mean, you don't have to stay in this one area. You know, you can move around. If you don't, you know, if you're born and raised in the city and you don't like it, you can move and take that with you, you know. So I have a lot of students that, and I could go on. I promise you I've got about 10 or 12 more stories of that'll make you sick as far as how much money they're making versus how much education they have. But through this time, through these years that I have been teaching, I've realized how much potential there is out there for this kind of education. And when I go to these high schools, I'm not just talking about my program. I'm talking about technical college education because it's so important. And you know, we've already talked about what percentage has the 4-year degree. And it's probably the percentage that's sitting in this room right now. And so it's so important for our economy to fill this gap. I don't know if we've thrown out the word skills gap before, or if you guys heard of that. And like Mike Rowe, he's a big advocate for that. And we're realizing that the baby boomers are retiring, and there's not a lot of people coming into the industry. And so when I go out to these high schools, that is what I do. Is I say, we need you. I don't care if you're male or female, we need you in this industry. It's a trade. You can learn something and build something with your hands, and the pride that you get after doing that is amazing. I mean, even some of the projects I've been on in Atlanta, we'll drive by on the interstate and I'll point to my kids, hey, I was part of that building, or whatever was going on. And so that's huge. And then the other thing is just the money that you can make, the career, you enjoy something. In my neck of the woods, it's all carpet, right? Carpet, hardwood flooring, the carpet capital of the world, Dalton, all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're in one of those working labor type positions inside a carpet mill, and you're doing the same thing every day for however many, 20, 30, 40 years, man, I couldn't do it. And some people do it, and that's fine. But some of my students right now, they're like, my parents did that, I'm doing it now, I gotta get out. That is not what I want. And they can get out, and I show them the writing on the wall and how much money they can make. I have some contractors come in and talk to my classes. We take job site trips. We go out to the job site and see the working end of what happens on a job site in the construction field. And so there's just a massive amount there. And then, do I need to probably get close to wrapping up? Okay. And then the other thing I try to do is here in the last couple, 2-3 years, is I've been trying to get to some middle schools. And I'll go and talk to their careers class, because most of y'all have a careers class in the middle school. And just, I'll ask those same questions, and it scares me. And so I then become, kind of a preacher, trying to get them to come to the altar as far as, looking for their future and what kind of, that they don't have to go to a 4-year school. You can go for a certificate. You can go for a year, 2 years. And now, even with the apprenticeship and things like that. So there's a lot of opportunities. The other thing in my program is I have a internship class. And so when they're close to graduating towards the end, that's when they can sign up for that class. And I try to get them, I have right now probably north of 20 companies and contractors throughout between Chattanooga and Atlanta, because Calhoun's like right in the middle, where they can intern with a company, and 9 times out of 10 they end up hiring on with that company and making good money. So and I try to tell them, it's like when I get out of I went to Southern Poly here in Marietta, Kennesaw now, I guess is what it's called. I don't think I'll ever call it that, but old school, I guess, right? So I went to Southern Poly, and when I got out, I was entry-level project manager, and I was making $46,000. And every job I've told you so far from students that have come through my program are way north of that. And I had a 4-year degree and 10 years worth of debt, and it just kind of went on and on. So anyway, I think a couple of the things is, if you're in an area where there is a technical college, get in touch with some of those guys, whether they're trades, the electrical, the heat and air, that kind of thing, or the construction. There's carpentry programs. and ask them to come and talk to your classes. I'm sure they will. I mean, I'm the chair for our construction management in the TCSG system, and I try to encourage my peers to do the same thing that I'm doing, because that's number one. It's sort of job security, because if we can pull 1, 2, 3 students from every high school, then we're feeding our program and we stay employed. And then also you're just helping that generation, because man, we're going to be suffering, and I'm glad to see some of the technology that's going on out there, because I'm almost afraid there's not going to be enough workers to do the work, and we're either going to have to order our stuff from China and or something, or it's going to be automated. But I mean, we're struggling, and so I'm here to tell you to help this whole system. And it's going to kind of start with you guys, and obviously it starts with mom and dad too, because mom and dad, no, Johnny needs to go to a 4-year school. You know, I did, Johnny does, you know, that kind of thing. So we struggle with that too, but just to help communicate that, and like I said, reach out to these technical colleges. They'll be more than happy to come and talk to your programs and classes and stuff like that. So what do you think? Is that good?
So, thanks, Donnie. Marc, you want to come on? So as Marc's working his way up here, hang on one second. As Marc's working his way up here, my personal kind of philosophy is, we all need to be, in our industry, we need to all be, not even our industry, everybody needs to be recruiting down the line. And we need to be taking ownership for the programs that are in both the secondary and the post-secondary, which we're doing a better job of. Historically, we didn't. But what Donnie just said and talked about was the fact that they were recruiting down the line. He's the first technical college instructor I've ever met that's going to a middle school. Okay, that's awesome. So I think that philosophy, we appreciate that, and certainly want to continue to do more. There's a round of applause for you again.
Yeah.
So with that,
I got one more thing.
And then you can.
Yeah. Sorry, one more thing. I just sitting here thinking about it. SkillsUSA. How many people have heard of SkillsUSA? And I think we're probably going to be talking about that a little bit later too. It is an awesome program. Okay, now I've been on the regional level, some kind of a carpentry judge, if you will, for probably 14 years. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago that I had a student say, hey, why don't we ever compete in this stuff? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know, because it's extra work for me. I mean, that's kind of in my mind, because I get paid so much. No, I'm just kidding. But so I said, okay, well, he has competed before in high school. He actually went on to the national competition, and as a high school, they won the national competition in Teamworks when he was a junior. So he said, let's do it here. And I'm like, okay. So we got a team up, and we went to Atlanta, and we won gold there. We went to nationals, first time ever competing in Teamworks in a national competition, and we won 3rd place in the nation. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And so now I've kind of, drank that Kool-Aid, and I'm real excited about SkillsUSA even more. And not only me, but my students are the ones that are in there. I'll first make a presentation to class, and I won't hardly have anybody interested. But then I'll kind of pinpoint out 3 or 4 guys or girls, and I'll say, hey, would you ever consider doing that? And they're like, I don't know, it kind of sounds cool. And then once we start practicing, and then we end up going to Atlanta competing, and we win, and then they're like, all of a sudden they're like, oh, this is awesome, and then we go to nationals, and it's kind of a sense of pride thing. And so that's the other thing is, at first I was sort of not too sure about SkillsUSA, but man, it is something awesome, especially the feeling for your students to actually compete in all these 3,000 different competitions that they have. Maybe not 3,000, but it's close, right? But there's so many different competitions. It's not just like construction stuff, it's everything. So that is also another great opportunity, because let's face it, we all like competition, right? We all like to compete in something. And the joy and the sense of pride that they have when they actually win or make it to a podium or anything like that is just something great. So I encourage you to do that as well. I'll stop talking.
I'd much rather hear Donnie than listen to myself, so I hope you guys got the right person up front. At Marc Peavy, I'm with the Technical College System, and my team handles everything that faces towards you guys. So everything that faces towards the K-12 side goes through our shop. Dual enrollment, college and career academies, any other relationships that y'all's local school districts might have with your local technical college comes through us. And so I appreciate the chance to talk to you for a couple minutes. Mike, joking about my bow tie and my being dressed up today, I happened to be coming from another meeting where I had to be dressed up. But if y'all don't tell anybody, don't tell on me, I was a little bored in that meeting, and I was scrolling on my phone like most of us do, and Josh, you'd be surprised. I pull up a video of a guy sitting in North Carolina operating a backhoe in Korea. So he's watching the screen, he's sitting in a chair with the controls for the backhoe. The backhoe itself is digging a big old hole in Korea. So you think about what he just talked about and the skill sets that Donnie was talking about, that stuff is absolutely happening. That's not pie in the sky. It's not something coming down the road. It's stuff that's here right now. And so just amazing to kind of see some of that stuff. And I certainly wanted to hear from Donnie because it's really he and his peers that make, and we'll talk a little bit about dual enrollment, but he and his peers are the ones who make technical colleges and the courses that we teach relevant. What he did not talk about that I'll mention is one of the key things I think makes a difference across all of our programs is we really do operate off of a placement rate. Each one of our instructors has a placement rate that he or she is working towards. What does that mean? That means, and I think across the system we're about 92, 93% placement in field. So if you've got a student graduating from one of their programs, one of Donnie's programs or any of the other ones, 93% of them are going to get a job in field if that's what they're looking to do. And so it's not just about an education, a piece of paper you put in your back pocket. It's actually connecting your students to what's next for them. And that's, well, we'll burn through this real quick. And I know you guys talked a little bit about skills gap. I'm just gonna, if you can't see this, but this is where one version of a snapshot of what Georgia's job market looks like and will look like in 2025, which is obviously getting here real quickly. So you see the vast majority of the blue section over there is that middle skills job piece. Mike, others have already talked about that. The light gray is kind of low skills, and the yellow, I'm a guy, that's yellow to me, I don't know what color that is high skills. And so that's what the job market looks like, and so that's what we collectively should be preparing all of our kids for, whether they're students in your classes or folks that are transitioning to us or kids that are taking dual enrollment. I mean, this is collectively we're all working towards that. The other piece, the bar graphs over on the left, do show you that we've got enough high skill workers to fill those high skill jobs. We unfortunately have enough low skill workers to fill those jobs, but we do not have enough middle skill folks to fill those middle skill jobs. And that's where the hole in the job market is, and that's more importantly where the opportunities that frankly almost every opportunity that Donnie was up here talking about, and those students that are coming through his program, it would fit in that middle skills job market right there. And so don't equate middle skills jobs with low salary. You heard what he was talking about. Those are considered middle skill jobs, and they're making 70, 80, 190. I need to go to work for that guy. But that's the opportunity. That's what the job market looks like. So that's why I think opportunities like dual enrollment and getting a jump start for your students in a hurry and helping them get to those things are important. So how many of y'all deal with dual enrollment? Yeah, I figured I don't want to beat you over the head with it, but so I'm going to throw a couple things up here. How many of you know that there was a lot of noise about dual enrollment in the legislative session that just passed? If you've got questions, I will at least attempt to answer those, so I thought that might be useful here for a few minutes. But that's the outlook of and the actual growth of dual enrollments over the last 6-7 years. So you can see just tremendous new opportunities for kids all across the state. Those are the state level numbers. Out of that 43,000 last year, I think about 2/3 of those were with dual enrollment courses with the technical college system. So we represent about 2/3 of the total enrollment. Where does that matter? I know I looked at the list. I know we've got a pretty good representation of folks all over the state here. But at the darker red areas, the oranges are where we are really having an impact. And I think what's important, TCSG gets to make an overall impact in the rural areas of Georgia because we're there. So we have 22 colleges. We cover the whole state. We slice it up in 22 different ways. We've got about 85, 86 campuses. And so we really do have an inordinate impact in rural parts of Georgia because we tend to be the only institution there, and we're there to be able to go to work in your respective high schools. Our colleges are very flexible in terms of, if you're teaching a core academic course or one of our technical programs, if we can accredit one of the instructors in your high school buildings, we'll do that. We're very flexible in terms of finding ways to make sure we offer opportunities to kids, and it shows in the numbers that we're having some real solid impact in more rural parts of Georgia. What I'll leave you with there is that's really happening because the folks in those local school buildings, your superintendents, your principals, are really realizing, hey, I want to offer new opportunities to my students, but just like everybody else, my budgets are limited. And so if I don't find a way to partner, I can't do those things for my students that I'd like to. And so they're coming alongside our technical colleges and saying, look, you've got these programs, you've got these lab spaces, you've got these adjunct instructors. Can you bring them to my building and offer things that we can't offer? Can we get kids to your building and put them in programs that we can't afford to build in our buildings? So that's the way those partnerships are working. So I certainly encourage you to think about that as you go back home. What are we getting out of that, and what do we see in terms of kids really taking something of value and really beginning with some of the things, again, that Donnie was talking about, some of those credentials that his students are earning. We see this around the state. Just in 2018, we have a little over 3,400 awards, whether that be a technical college certificate or up to the associate's degree. So those are technical credentials that the students are taking away as part of their high school career that are directly valuable in the work world. And so that's one of the values I think that we at TCSG, and more importantly your local technical college, brings to the table, is that for those students who are interested in this, it's not just a set of skills that are nice to have. They're going to pick up some type of credential that is important to the work world, and we're really having some success in that. The other piece that's important, I think, when you really talk about the skills trades, how many of you have heard of the High Demand Career Initiative in Georgia, or Hope Career Grants? Does that ring a bell? So all of those are really the same set of skills, so same set of programs. And so we have really focused, and we've seen a huge increase plainly in the credentials awarded to high school students in those high demand career fields, those same ones that are eligible for Hope Career Grants. There's about 17, I think, maybe 18 now, different categories. If you want to know what those are, it ranges from movie production to truck driving to all the skill trades, all those things in between. You can look up Hope Career Grants, but those are the skill sets that we're talking about here that we're really focusing on students getting credentials in those high demand career fields. And then also, those are the same ones that if a student is working on that, or heck, if a student's parent is interested in it, that Hope Career Grant, those things are essentially free because they're high demand careers in the state of Georgia. The state has committed to making sure if you want to pick up skills in any one of those program areas, then you're essentially going to be able to do it tuition free. And so that's a huge opportunity. We focus on that in dual enrollment because that absolutely means those students are getting high demand credentials. Several of you raised your hands about college and career academies. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that other than to say, when you think about work that is happening to really connect high school buildings, post-secondary partners, the local industry, and meeting with a focus on meeting workforce needs, that's what career academies really are focused on around the state. So if you have one in your community, I hope you can say that's what it's focused on. There's 47 of them. That's just kind of a quick picture of kind of where they are. More importantly, what are they doing? They're really being driven by industry. They're utilizing dual enrollment opportunities. They're utilizing apprenticeships. And what I will say, whether you have one or not, the conversation that we hope is happening in your respective school districts is, how do we make sure the skills, the things that our students are learning or need to be learning on the high school side, or even, as we mentioned, push down beginning in the middle school, how do we make sure that they know where those things become valuable in the workforce? Maybe that's a set of skills that can be learned completely in a high school program in a high school building. But it might be a particular career field that sees value. Maybe you've got to have a particular technical college certificate to get started. Maybe you got to have an associate's degree to get started. Or maybe it's something where you got to have a PhD. But the point of that is helping students understand, here are your jumping off points to be able to get the right kind of skills to be able to go into the workforce that you might want to go into. And then how can you do that sooner rather than later? You guys know better than I do that there are really kind of two places we lose kids in Georgia. We lose that 16-year-old ninth grader who decides to walk out and never come back, and that 18-year-old who graduates with no real conception of what's next for him or her. And they just wander around. And unfortunately, our average age of student is 26 or 27. So that tells you where they end up 7, 8 years down the road, because they end up with us because they've met little Johnny or little Susie, and they want to go have a family, and they realize I can't afford my family on what I make in my maybe not career fulfilled job yet. And so I've got to go back and pick up some more skills. And so this idea that we connect students to what next, I think is terribly important. A little bit about apprenticeships in terms of how we do that. And I'm just throwing this out there to say that every one of your technical college partners, wherever you are, you've got one. Like I said, if you don't know who that is, you come see me afterwards. But we cover the whole state. Every one of them is a registered apprenticeship provider on a federal level. So that is a piece that we're picking up and making much more important around the state. Is gives students a chance to be even a step beyond your traditional work-based learning. That a formal apprenticeship, we got companies all over Georgia that are looking to grow those, and we really are interested in plugging as many of your high school students into those as we can. So I'm going to kind of stop there in terms of what I wanted to talk about. I think the key piece that we hope you take away from a TCSG standpoint is it is not enough anymore to drop that kid off, your students off at 18 with just a high school diploma. You look at the workforce needs that are out there, 85% of them all require something beyond a high school diploma. And so collectively, we need to make sure that we are working to get kids connected to and focused on what's next for them. Again, it may just be connecting a set of skills they can learn in high school to a career field that will utilize those. Some of you probably use the U-Science aptitude test. That's one way to do that. Maybe it's a career field that I know I've got to have some kind of post-secondary education to get to, whether that be a technical college certificate or, again, that PhD. It's helping students know if you want to go do this is the steps to get there, and you guys are a critical part of connecting them to that and being that first real guideline to get them on that pathway. And so when we talk about pathways, it's not just about a 3-course pathway in a high school building. It is just as much about what path, what career field do you want to head towards, and how do you get on that sooner rather than later. So there's no question that across the state, our high school coordinators, and I hope you know who yours is, we have a high school coordinator at every one of our buildings or every one of our colleges that owns your high school. Whatever high school you're part of, one of our coordinators owns your building as his or her responsibility to make those connections with you. So if you ever need that, just know those folks are out there. So I'm done. If anybody has any questions about dual enrollment, you can ask them now, or I'll be around. Yes, ma'am.
That's a question about the apprenticeship. You said those are for our high school students, or if they're not for just dual enrollment or college?
It can be either one. Depends on which program it is and what company it is that's out there. So if you've got questions, or we're in the process of developing new ones all the time. So
I just met our apprenticeship person for what you're saying.
yeah. Yes, sir.
I know one of the suggested changes in DE was that only core classes would be available. What is the likelihood that next year, I know it's going to be reintroduced next year, who do we need to talk to, and how do we need to advocate for our students?
I think without a doubt, the question was, and I'm going to generalize it because I think it's a bigger question than just that. What do you need to do to advocate for the right types of dual enrollment opportunities for your students? You saw the cost curve that was there, or the growth of students. Well, that equates to a cost curve, and so I think that's my editorial. That's where the changes have been kind of coming from. If you want to advocate for specific things for your students, it's clearly to go through your local legislators. That's my suggestion. They're the ones that will be making changes or not. I will tell you, I should have said this from the beginning. Nothing changed as a result of this legislative session. We all heard a whole bunch of things, but at the end of the day, nothing changed. So the program is the way it was. And I think there will probably be some changes in the future. I don't know if they'll happen next year or not. But in terms of advocating, it's no question to go through your local legislative delegation. They're the ones that are picking this up. They're the ones that are having these hearings, and they'll be the ones obviously to change or not change any kind of laws that are out there. So, any other questions? I'll be around the back for a few minutes if you need anything else. Thanks for the chance to talk.
So we've got a couple other folks we just want to give a chance to give you just a little bit of update. How many of you are familiar with the SkillsUSA organization within your school? Some of you? So Sylvia, if you want to just come up real quick and just, this is Sylvia Phillips. She's with SkillsUSA National. And many of you are familiar with SkillsUSA and just had the state competition, but we're going to just give Sylvia just a chance to talk a little bit about SkillsUSA real quick.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you today. So SkillsUSA was founded in 1965, an association for students and teachers and business and industry partners, sort of like a professional organization for the student. And we cover 130 different occupational areas: architecture, construction, cosmetology, public safety. All of those areas fall within our SkillsUSA universe. So many of you might think back in the day, if you were part of Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA, or maybe you were in agriculture was your desire, and so you were part of FFA. SkillsUSA is a career technical student organization, just like FBLA and FFA. Perhaps you've not been as familiar with this one, and so that's why we wanted to bring it to your attention, because we're in this same space, serving students who are interested in these types of careers. We have here in the state of Georgia, we have broken our membership record, almost 9,000 student members here in the state. About 2,500 of them, best and brightest students from the state, competed just a few weeks ago at the Georgia International World Congress Center. I see a little, a state champion right back there. Okay, gold medalist, woohoo! Going to represent us in Louisville, Kentucky then, and so we're super excited about that. So in Louisville, we'll have about 6,000 competitors to compete in 105 different competition areas. But SkillsUSA is way more than just competitive events. It's an opportunity for students to earn scholarships. It's an opportunity for them to learn from subject matter experts about different business and industry. It's an opportunity for them to do community service and learn that it's not all about me. Giving back is very important. It's an opportunity for leadership development. In addition to the skills gap that we hear around technical skills, you're probably hearing about those other missing skills. Maybe you call them soft skills or employability skills. Things like communication, teamwork, collaboration, integrity, work ethic, reliability. And these are also the skills that we're working for, helping our students achieve success. Because so many business and industries now are telling us nationwide that we will provide opportunities for training in the technical skills, but we need these students to be career ready in this area of employability skills. Probably many of you have heard a lot about the diploma seals the Department of Education rolled out last summer. One of them is a leadership seal, and that relates to your career and technical student organization like SkillsUSA. Another diploma seal relates to employability skills, and that is an intentional focus on that umbrella of skills. And so I wanted to make you aware that part of the SkillsUSA work is around employability skills. And so 2 years ago, we launched a curriculum called the Career Essentials Suite. Some of you probably picked up information in the back about that. It's all designed around 17 essential elements that were given to us by some research by Quintessential Careers. We researched 1,000 different employers and said, what do your employees need to be able to know and do? And that culminated in 17 essential elements, and that's how we built the curriculum. It's project-based learning. It has online and offline components, and I'm happy to send you more information about that. There were some little cards on the back table when you came in. If you want to leave your card with me, I'm happy to reach out to you, or I'm happy to share my contact information, and then you can reach out to me. But SkillsUSA is way more than competitive events. It gives a student a place to belong, where they can find other students who are like-minded, and so that's what I wanted to share with you today.
That was awesome. We're very fortunate to have Sylvia right here in our own backyard. Randy, you want to come on up? We have, and Liz, if you want to as soon as Randy's done, we'll just go right in. So the last two things, Randy Beal with the North Georgia Building Trades is going to just give you a little bit of overview. You heard mention this earlier from Jeff, but you'll give us a quick overview. And real quick, before we let you get out, we just want to show you a couple quick things that are available to you online and resources that are out there. And Liz is going to show you that before we let you get out of here in just a minute.
Thanks. Well, the good news is I do not have a PowerPoint, so everybody's happy about that. Appreciate the opportunity to speak for just a few seconds. I'm Randy Bill, represent the Atlanta and North Georgia Building Trades. I'm the business manager, financial secretary, treasurer. I'm a union sheet metal worker by trade, 31 years. Was elected to fill this position. So I represent all the building trades. If it's in construction, there's a union for it. I represent their business and political interest. This is a wonderful facility here that the UA has, and they did a great job today. If I could just get a round of applause for Jeff and his staff for what they've done. So we're going to be working with Dawn in the future about setting up some other union facilities that you can come visit. The painters have a great facility, brand new out there in Panola, on Panola Road. We'd like for you to see that. Some others as well. There's a paper back there on the table. It looks like this right here. It has all the wages on all the trades that we represent, the information for the apprenticeships. All of them are very similar, you know that, and they work very similar to this. Same timelines, generally the same requirements to apply. I heard you say that your average entry age, who was at 27? Somebody said 27 up here just a minute ago. Ours is about the same. And this is what I want to leave you with. When you start in a trade early, it means you get to retire early. My brother's playing golf today because he started when he was 18. He's 58. And so that's what we all ought to be after, is being able to get these young people into a career path where they can retire at a good, decent age where they can enjoy life. So if you need any information from the building trades, please do not hesitate to call. Our information is listed here. All right? Thank you.
Hey, I'm Liz. I'm with AGC Georgia. Mike is going to drive all of our technology on the computer and resources for me. So just quickly, we wanted to provide you guys as many resources as possible based on the things that you guys have learned today. So I know that we gave you guys a bunch of handouts. There's a QR code on the back of the one-pager that goes directly to the Georgia Career Pipeline. This is updated as of actually yesterday for trade talks and industry resources. And what that looks, so it's georgiacareerpipeline.gadoe.org. You go to the trade talks and industry resources, and then those of us who partner with Dawn for trade talks have a resources folder. So if you go and click construction, this has all of the resources that we've talked about today. We are constantly updating this as well. So there is everything from our PowerPoint to some of the actual paper handouts that we've given out for you guys today. There are trade-specific folders for things, for the trades that we have partnered with and that have sent some of their scholarship information, some of the apprenticeship programs that they have. We don't have to go through all of those. But basically there's also just information for you guys to go through just as far as the info on the demand for the careers in construction, just to kind of back up if you guys do any presentations for your students, just so you're armed with some of those stats. That's great, that's perfect. So there is an Excel that I'll pull up very quickly. Just since we've talked about the TCSG locations and stuff like this, we have an Excel sheet in the shared folder that is locations by trade. So the technical colleges by trade, and then if you want to look up the trades by location. So both of them are sortable. I thought that was pretty easy, depending on the trade that you would prefer to look for. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to BYF. So the biggest, I think, piece is going to be the actual website for BYF. So BYF is Build Your Future. It is a great website that gives you an overview of all of the different construction trades. There are, do you want to go? Here, go to byf.org and then scroll down. So if you scroll down, it does have a demand, but then you can go and you can explore the different careers. So you can click on, if you'll click on the mason right quick.
You're going to show us a robot?
Right, not a robot. But it does give you salary information. It's great. Anybody can go to this website. You can actually order actual resources for counselors through there. You can also contact me and we can help you guys out with any of the actual posters, or they have trading cards for the actual trades. The kids don't know what they don't know. And so the more you guys explore this website and encourage them and their parents to explore the website, it's a great resource.
You can see the exact demand in our state by trade. So if you want to see how many pipe fitters are needed by 2021, or basins or anything on there by trade, if you just click on Georgia Mike, it'll just click on it though. It should. Usually if you click on it,
Maybe it's not working.
That's right.
Oh yeah, do that one.
If you were to scroll, that is based off of.
It says it's updated quarterly. And whenever you're exploring the specific careers, not only does it again give you the salaries, it also kind of gives you the day in the life, and then it also gives you the different pathways to get into that industry, which is pretty cool. All right, that's all I got.
That's a quick overview in a short time, but hopefully that's helpful. All the resources, the ones that weren't there, that aren't there now, like Josh's presentation and Jeff's presentation that he shared this morning, we'll add to that resource list. So if any of the copies, if there's something there that if something you want isn't there, just let us know. We can add it to that resource page.
Okay, so we are about to wrap up. There are just a couple of things that I need to talk to you about. First, though, door prizes. There are 2 yellow pieces of paper under the seats with the word winner. So if you have that piece of paper, you're a winner, and you can, oh, you have one, yay! And then you can come see me at the back. I'll have your prize for you. The other is Dr. Shropshire. He's coming around with a QR code for a quick feedback survey. It's 5 questions. It's really fast. You'll be able to complete that. And then once you complete your survey, you can come sign out with us in the back. Yes. And that's it. That's no, Maisha. That's not. Look at what Maisha. That's not the paper. Will you show her what the paper looks like? Yeah. I had a winner over here. Will you show her what the paper looks like? Yeah. That's what the paper looks like. Yours did not work.
All right, just one last thing. We have a lot of these little promotional cards. These little red cards and the ones that kind of look like postcards have a QR code. Feel free to grab a handful of them. You can give these directly to students. They can actually use the QR and we can get information and contact them directly. Or if you want to contact us about career events, you can go to our website and go to staff and contact anybody that you talked to today. Also, before you leave, we actually, in Local 72, has provided kind of a mug for everybody. So before you leave, make sure, and I think Dawn or somebody's going to help make sure that you get one as you go out. So thank you again for coming, and I look forward to talking to you in the future.
And let's thank Jeff, and let's thank Josh and the team of students that have been here today. We'll look for a video. We'll try to figure out a way to get that posted. Thank you all so much.